Hey everybody, welcome to Scripture Twisting 101 with Bear the Image. Man, I thought I made that last video and then, and not that he or Nick probably saw it or whatever, but maybe he did, I don't know, because this is like totally new, what we're about to see here, right? And this is just prime example of how when their argument is destroyed, they change it. They all of a sudden change it, right? To mean something else or to try and add some new layer to it. And I'm getting to the point with this guy specifically where he's starting to piss me off. Like I'm genuinely agitated today after I saw this video because this is what they do. They are liars and they twist the meaning of things, take them out of context, just to further their doctrine. Let's watch this.
You believe in the Bible, right?
Correct.
So according to Jesus, there's no greater love than to giving your life to someone else, for someone else. Right? Yeah, so then according to Jesus, a greater love would be loving someone else, correct?
All right, let's pause right there, right? So, let's actually go back. What did he say?
Right? So according to Jesus, there's
According to Jesus, right?
no greater love than to giving your life to someone else.
No greater love than giving your life for someone else. Okay. What he's talking about is John 15, 12, and 13. I got it pulled up right here. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. Okay? So this is what he's talking about. That there is no greater love that can be expressed than being willing to die for your friends, or than dying for your friends. All right, let's let him continue.
Someone else. Right? Yeah, so then according to Jesus, a greater love would be loving someone else, correct?
Okay, so a greater love would be loving someone else. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, so can God express all forms of love without creation?
And there it is, right? The same stupid argument. Can God express all forms of love before creation? Okay, what did he just do there? You may not have caught it, right? What did he just do there? So he says this, right? Bear says this, that Jesus is saying the greatest expression of love that you can have is to another person. So his argument is that because Jesus says there's no greater love than laying down your life for your friends, right? There's no greater love than being willing to die for someone else, for your friends. That as like an outward expression of love, right? He's saying that the greatest capacity for love necessitates another person, which is it's the Trinitarian argument for love the entire time, right? That like the Trinity has to be true because the expression of love requires somebody else to be there. So it had to be the Son and the Spirit, right? Otherwise, God would be dependent on creation. We talked about it in the last video. So in my last video, I talk about how, no, self-love is a thing, right? Like God could, if it was just the Father by himself, he could have perfect self-love. So now they twist the argument and they come to this, where Jesus is talking about the laying down of your life for your friends and how there's no greater love than that. So let's go back to Bear.
I think you're loving yourself other than yourself.
That's not all forms of love. That's not all forms of love. There's loving yourself and then loving someone else, right? So can God express all forms of love without creation?
Okay, so there's loving yourself and then there's loving somebody else, right? That's part of Bear's argument, that these are two separate things. Well, the simple fact of the matter is they're not separate things. right? It's not like you have love A and love B, where love A is inward self-love and love B is outwardly expressed love. Like, it's not two different types of love. The love is the same, regardless of who the subject is. You can love yourself in the exact same way that you can love another person, right? The only thing that changes is the subject, who the love is directed to. And I've heard people bring up the argument like, oh, well, can you take yourself out on dates, right? Like, can you show romantic love to yourself? That necessitates another person. Can you kiss yourself, right? Those acts, right? Kissing, going out on dates, whatever, right? Those are not love. They are actions manifested from the core feeling of love, right? A kiss itself is not love. What does the kiss stem from? An intense admiration for your partner or for another person, right? Like an intense feeling of goodwill towards that subject, right? That's what like the action stems from, is that core feeling. That feeling is no different whether it's applied to yourself or someone else. Only the subject changes. So, no, self-love and outwardly expressed love are not different. Again, it's not like love A and love B. They're the same thing. It's just love A, right? Let's just say love A. Okay? And you know what? Here's a good example. If you're out in the woods, if you're out in the woods and you light a campfire, okay? And the campfire is giving off heat and light. If you leave the area, there's two questions here. If you leave the area and the campfire is still going, the first question, does the heat and the light emanating from the fire stop? Okay, that's the first question. Do they stop? And the second question is, are they different? Is the fire emanating a different heat and light when you're not around versus when you are around? And the answer to both of those questions is no. That's what God's love is like, okay? It's like a fire emanating heat and light. It always does it. Before creation, God is his own recipient of love. After creation is just introducing more people into the environment to receive the heat and light that's already there.
Yes, he can do anything.
Good. How can he love someone else without creation if you don't believe?
We don't understand, that doesn't mean that.
So explain how he can love someone else without creation. Yeah, loving what?
Because he loved himself.
Yeah, but that's not all forms of
He
love.
loved himself.
That's not all forms of love, Maria.
Says who?
Says you.
Says who?
You just admitted it. Says Jesus.
Says who?
Says
Okay. So, there we have it, right? He's changed the argument now to incorporate Jesus' words at John 15 and saying that if Jesus says there's no greater love than laying down your life for somebody, that the greatest capacity for love has to involve outward expression to another person. This is flawed because it confuses a moral example, like what Jesus is prescribing to the apostles. It confuses that with ontological necessity. In John 15, let's go back to it. In John 15, 12 and 13, he's telling them, he's telling people, he's not telling immortal, uncreated things that this is the greatest degree of love. He's telling humans who have the capacity to die, right? God can't die. So if you're saying that the greatest capacity for love is that you have to die for your friends, you know, God can't actually do that. Which is funny because they bring up the hypostatic union crap, which even they don't really believe because they believe that his divine nature never really died. that his human nature, even though the two things are supposed to be inseparable and indivisible within the one person, they say that only one of the natures died. Absolutely retarded, but here we are. So, he's trying to twist a prescriptive description that Jesus is giving to the apostles as a descriptive of God's ontology, of God's essence. All right? In this verse, he's saying that the greatest form of love for them is sacrificial love. That doesn't mean that God's love requires an external second person to exist, like I already explained. Humans are finite. We're relational beings, and we're not, and we are finite relational beings. We don't exist like God does, eternally and infinitely. Okay? So for us, love is best expressed in other action, like in action towards other people, right? We don't have the capacity for perfect self-love like God does. That's what he's saying here. He's describing in these verses how finite, limited, relational human beings should show love. This is not an ontological explanation like God is love in 1 John. See, that's what they're trying to like confuse people with. But God's love is already complete in himself. The outward expression is just a choice. It's not necessary. And that's probably the thing that really pisses me off about this guy. Right? Like, I'm heated. I'm annoyed. Because he's taking what Jesus is trying to tell us as a moral guideline for human beings, and he's trying to retroact that as a metaphysical principle for God. John 15, 12, and 13 is not about love as it relates to God. It's about love as it relates to us. But of course, they'll never believe that, because they think that when he's telling these words to the apostles, that he's also still fully God. They think that God is standing in front of them, fully God and fully man, telling them that he's going to lay down his life, which opens up a whole host of other problems with the hypostatic union, like I was talking about. But no, it's absolutely incorrect, entirely retarded, and just a textbook example of how they'll pick anything. They'll pick any verse they can find and twist the lesson to fit their doctrine. Like I said, that verse is an instruction to human beings, not an explanation of God's nature. It's just, I don't know. It's absolutely ridiculous.